So now that I have everyone's attention, I would like to ask once again, how many of you have been working with React? Yeah, really nice answer because I am trying to get there. And how many of you have been loving working with React? All right, a very positive response over there, and from Chetan over back there. All right, so as you can see from the title itself, we will be covering why we can shift towards the Next.js itself and try to counter some of the disbeliefs that Next.js brings to the React community. All right, so let's get started over there. So yeah, so this image behind me pretty much sums the state of React currently. As you can see that it is just a mess around there, or people are just trying to throw away the React itself. So there is not we can say it has some good community support, but not a great developer support, we can say. So why do I say that React is pretty much like in the previous image itself? So there are three main reasons coming to it, which are the one is the use effect itself, the only thing that was introduced to fix React, but it's not fixing it, it's just creating a blender itself. The one is the use effect, other is use state, and the biggest of them all is the virtual DOM itself. Virtual DOM, it was created to, what we can say, efficiently render React itself, but we will get over there in some time. Yeah, so the image currently depicting Obi-Wan Kenobi, this is the, what we can say, a fresher when he's new to the React, he's trying to learn use effect, use states, and the virtual DOM. And this is a senior developer. Not a senior developer, we can say a mid-senior level developer who is just working in a very large code base. So it can get tricky sometimes. Why would I say that? So coming to the, what we can say, architecture of React, React uses, React uses virtual DOM, as we all know. And along with virtual DOM, what we do is that React does not update the DOM itself. It uses the virtual DOM to, what we can say, map the changed elements or changed states of the DOM. It does so by using the method of dirty checking. Yeah, so coming to the dirty checking, here we have an image depicting how dirty checking works, right? So we have two circular objects above us. So the one is the real DOM, the circle representing or the tree representing in the upper segment of the image, and the below it is the virtual DOM. So as you can see, if any of the one element is changed, it doesn't update the virtual DOM, it tries to create a difference, or we can say a diff between those two, the virtual DOM and the real DOM, and try to update that element itself, not the whole tree, because basically their explanation is that they're trying to save the efficient, it is more of a efficient way. Earlier it was in React version 18, this method was being followed. Later on we had some very promising frameworks like Next.js, we can say. Some would argue even Remix does that, Astro does that. There are various frameworks like the current JavaScript or the React environment or the Node.js environment itself is pretty much the F word. So yeah. Also if you really been working with React, so these are the two potential endpoints where you can mess it up. The first one being the use effect itself in the dependency array, what I'm trying to say. If you try to keep that dependency array empty, you don't know what your component does that. It may re-render multiple times, it may re-render when the child finishes rendering. Pretty much you would have some side effects in that. So it is really important to keep your dependency array updated. Along with that, maybe for sometimes your an expensive, what we can say, function is being called. For example, we have used a callback over here to fetch the data from our server. it may be a simple task, but it can also be a really expensive task. So using a callback hook is really recommended over here to stop additional callbacks. Yeah, so this is what you need to do to fetch your data. Not just this, you also need to have a state itself. So yeah, we will have some another slide to explain the state. Yeah, so I'm not sure if it is visible enough. Okay, I will update the image later on. So yeah, basically what the React drives, we can say a kind of a life cycle is, first we initialize an empty state, later on we use an use effect, or we can say a simple side effect to fetch our data from the server. Once the data has been fetched, we set that data into our state, and later on we use that state to render out our data. So as you can see, just to render simple data on your website, you need to follow these methods over here. Like you need to have two states for yourself just to render out a simple data. Now you don't know like what else we need to have interactability. These are just the rendering part. When you go to the data interactivity part, it really depends on you how well you optimize that all. Yeah, so earlier I said that Next.js isn't the only one that adopted some shortcomings of React. There are other notable frameworks as well, one being Remix. The others are Astro. Astro is doing pretty well, but in the graph you can see that no other technology is close to Next.js. Like Next.js started adopting those shortcomings pretty early itself and is being widely used in the industry. So example like you may, what we can say, disagree that I don't want to use Next.js. I will just use something from here like for example, Astro over here. I will just use Astro. Why do I need to use Next.js itself? So you can go ahead, be brave. You can go ahead with Astro. But as you can see in the graph, like क्या कहते हैं, सबको पैसे ही चाहिए इन द एंड में, और कंपनीज ज़्यादा तो Next.js को प्रीफर कर रही है, तो चॉइस तुम्हारी है, उस पर आ जाएगा ये. Yeah, so also like the React.js team has been pretty much closely working with the Next.js team itself. So we can controversially say that what we can say, much of the React's newer features are being developed specifically for the Next.js team. Like I'm using the word controversially over here. Like you may agree, you may disagree. These are just my thoughts over here. All right, so am I clear with the drawbacks of React, or does anyone have a question till here? Okay, just let me know if it is going too technical. Is that it? All right, so if we are great till here, so let me introduce like Next.js. Like Next.js is nothing but a framework built for React. What do you mean by framework? Like we had initially, let me give you an example. We initially had JavaScript itself. So we can do our web development, build our application with the JavaScript itself. But later on, Zuckerberg introduced React itself to ease our development. Later on, we understood that it wasn't to ease our workload, it was just to create more mess. So later on, Next.js was introduced to fix shortcomings of React and also add server-side capabilities to the React itself. As you may know, React is just a UI framework. If you need to do anything related to databases or anything server-related stuff, you can't do that in React. You would need something like an Rails API or maybe a Go backend, something like that. All right, so yeah, before going ahead, like the issues I mentioned earlier were later fixed, tried to fix with the React version 19. Like they introduced the compiler, React compiler, which tries to address some of the shortcomings, but again, it was just a layer of abstraction, not really trying to solve the main issue, which was the virtual DOM itself. We don't know if it will be fixed or it won't, but yeah, we have some cherry on the top, introducing Next.js. Yeah, so what Next.js tries to do? Next.js was, we can argue that it was specifically designed for server-side rendering. Like there are two types of, not two types of, but commonly there are two types of rendering methods. One is the client-side rendering, when data is rendered on the client. Client will be your browser, and other is the server-side rendering, where data is prepared on your server and sent to client to just render out the HTML part over there. So yeah, as you can see, like the React uses the client-side rendering method. We have example for what we can say a root element. React tries to render everything in that root element itself, whereas in Next.js we have some other architecture over here. Yeah, so how SSR works? SSR, like I mentioned earlier, it stands for server-side rendering. All right, so how it can be faster? Like there are four simple cycles over here. Earlier, the HTML is prepared on the server. Like whenever a browser requests a particular web page, that is sent to the server, and then HTML, what we can say, the server prepares a non-interactable HTML, which is directly streamed into the client itself. And later on, through the process of hydration, you might have seen errors saying that hydration error, hydration error. Hydration is nothing but what we can say, attaching JS interactivity on the client side for the server generated HTML. Like initially, the HTML is not interactive; it is just a fast, what we can say, stream of HTML data, which will be displayed to you. So, and later on, client-side JavaScript kicks in to make it interactable. So that's how it, what we can say, is significantly faster than client-side rendering. All right. So later on, like we have two types of rendering methods in Next.js. One being the static generation, and other one is server-side rendering, as discussed earlier. Like one of the main advantages of server-side rendering can be first being the fast page load itself, and other one is your SEO, search engine optimization. You might need it to list your, what we can say, to-do application on the Google website itself. So you need SEO for that. That's where server-side rendering really kicks into it. All right, so earlier, like we had this example, okay, so on the client side, as we seen earlier, like we need to set up the states, also the effects, and after that, once everything is being loaded out, we will render it in the JavaScript. Whereas Next.js simplifies this by using server components. Server components are nothing but your top level page itself is asynchronous. So as you can see, your top level function is asynchronous. You can just await your server side data into that component itself, and it really streams down your application in just, as you can say, less than 10 lines just to data fetch. Whereas in React, you literally were somewhere around 30 lines of code. And again, like Next.js tries to separate the server-side logic along with the client-side logic over here. Like, but we would still need the client-side logic over here, because the client components will be used, what we can say, for the interactability. For example, you have a web page with something like a event listener for a click of a button. Now that cannot be regenerated on the server itself, as server does not have event listeners specifically for the DOM. So that's where we would still need the client components. But yeah, we can, what we can say, optimize the data fetching logic and also introduce some server-side rendering with help of Next.js. All right, so enough about the technical stuff, and let's see what else. Not enough about the technical stuff. We still have some more. Like what extra does Next.js provide? Like React had one job, what we can say, making easy to render our applications. But for any application, like you would need multiple routes. One can be your home route. One can be your pages route. Sorry, not the pages route, the about page. One can be your services page. There will be multiple routes over here. So in React, we don't have native support for that. We need to install a extended dependency over there, known as the React router. By using React router, we first need to configure that, and later on, configure all our pages over there. Whereas in Next.js, you just have file-based routing out of the box. Like any of the Angular people would know like how much of a blessing this is really is. So yeah, Next.js has file-based routing out of the box itself. Is the slide visible to all of you guys? Are the text all visible? Okay, thank you. All right, so that was for the page rendering. Like now, Saurabh, you said that Next.js also offers server-side not the server-side rendering, the server-side stuff itself. So for the server, you have your API route handlers. Like you can create an API route. For example, one API route can be your get HTTP handler, one can be your post HTTP handler, and something like that. That too will be addressed through the file-based routing itself. Now coming to the optimizations part, like you now have multiple pages and you can still see that Next.js offers much more faster page load between when you switch the pages itself. So how it does that, it has built-in optimization for linking between the pages. You just import a link component over here and mention your page you want to redirect to. Earlier we used to do that with an anchor tag. We use a link tag over here. What special it does that, it prefetches this file in the background itself. So all the, what we can say, data fetching has been done in the background, and whenever you click, you instantly have an page ready for you. There won't be any loading components over there. So that's what what we can say, does great about that. Not just the linking between the pages, Next.js also have like image optimizations, and working with images can be pretty tough coming from me. And yeah, image optimizations is also there. You also have the inbuilt font optimizations over there. Right, just wait a minute. So I guess the presentation is visible, okay? Yeah, so what extra do we get from Next.js itself? One being the built-in optimizations for the images. Like earlier, coming from a developer, you need to optimize your images beforehand. Like you need to write a bunch of JavaScript just to optimize your images, whereas Next.js handles that for you. Also, like when it comes for link optimization, like that was really a good lifesaver when you not trying to brag or something about Next.js, like when you try to compare the lighthouse metrics for a React application and a Next.js application has particularly a faster initial page load due to that link component itself. Also, the route handlers, as we talked about earlier, having support for what we can say server-side capabilities and HTTP methods. Server actions are nothing but like it's pretty much like PHP, but let's not go over there. Data fetching, like we had some client-side data fetching along with the server-side data fetching. All right. Also, like some of the reasons why Next.js is faster, just to add to that, it is built, the compiler being used in the Next.js is built using Rust itself. So if you have been active in the tech community itself, you know how important the Rust language has become recently. It is being recommended for what we can say, faster request and the memory optimization part. Rust does pretty well at that. That's why Next.js is faster over there. All right, so that's not just all. Like any server-side language, or you can say a full-stack application, is incomplete without a middleware. I am pretty sure people know what a middleware over here is. So yeah, Next.js has support for middleware itself. Like it is pretty much easy. You just define a middleware.ts file in your root configuration, and you can just listen for every path, catch all the routes over there, or conditionally catch some of the routes. And what you can do in the middleware itself, you can basically do the basic stuff of authentication or authorization. Along with, you can redirect a particular user. For example, if we can use a server-side redirect when a user is trying to access something which is not obligated to. Or also we can have a middleware just for the bot detection itself. For example, like nowadays there are a lot of web crawlers. You can just detect the bot activity in your middleware layer and redirect from there, or you can even ban that user from over there. And also like the simple stuff like logging every activity and making the analytics, etc. Okay, so coming to the additional developer experience part, that's where Next.js really shines in. Like the developer experience in Next.js is pretty much very good. People don't complain about the developer experience in the Next.js. Yeah, they might complain about, sorry, I'm just treating this as a mic. They might consider it as an, what you can say. All right, I forgot about that. Yeah, so the TypeScript itself, every developer knows that, not the developer, every JavaScript developer knows how important TypeScript has really become. Like it catches errors early on, and yeah, pretty much that. And also like Next.js being having the capabilities for server-side code, you can use your databases over there. So now when it comes to database, it is not really recommended to write your raw SQL queries in your server-side code. It might be or may not be a good practice. But yeah, generally we tend to use ORMs to handle all of your database operations. Now it has support, not a built-in support, but a community support, we can say. We have community supports from Drizzle as well as Prisma. People may have listened about Prisma over here, but yeah, like recently Drizzle has been doing pretty well, especially as it is written entirely in the TypeScript itself. Like Prisma, you need to learn an entire new language, but Drizzle just gives it out of the box using the TypeScript. So yeah, this is what I'm talking about Drizzle over here, and it uses, yeah, so this is what a syntax would look like using an ORM instead of a raw SQL. All right, over here. All right, so now coming to the UI part, like people may have heard about like building UIs can be tough and also a tedious work, and most of the people don't really like building UIs on their own. Generally in our company we have some UI team, I'm not going to point out at them, but developers don't really tend to build UIs on their own. They just pretend that I don't care about building UIs. We have a, what we can say, a UI team for that. So yeah, if you are in that mentality, you are just like me. I'd like to introduce you guys to the shared CN UI. You may have heard about it, like it been pretty hot topic in the JS environment itself. Like you had built-in components for you. Again, these are just one of the examples over here. You can go to any components and install it right away. Now this alone may or may not tend you to use shared CN components, but yeah, I know something that you might get intriguing into. One being the V0 dev. Now, for example, like if you need some landing component, just give me a prompt. I can just give a prompt over here, and it will give me the UI right away, which I can just copy paste and get ahead with. Can someone give me a prompt for a UI over here? We can have a live demo right now. All right. Do you want any specific colors?
Pink. Yellow. Pink.
Okay.
I don't care. That's not my stock market dashboard.
All right. Let's just see if the AI works or fails over here. All right, so every component being written over here is just as the, what we can say, the Next.js standard itself. So you can just go ahead and copy paste them. And later on, I'm not saying that you can just copy paste your code from the AI. I'm just saying that you can have your prototype from over here Now, using AI in your code base really depends on your manager, so feel free to ask them.
तेजू सर की वजह से बोला क्या?
नहीं नहीं हमारे लाइक ठीक है. सोच रहा हूँ बोलूँ ना बोलूँ ऐसे. हाँ दिखता है ना. पहले जनरेशन हो जाए, अभी उतना अच्छा नहीं है.
कोड लिखा है.
ठीक है. So everything you are seeing over here are just written in the Next.js standard itself, and once you have that, yeah, you can see the dashboard over there. And if you really need the code, you can just copy it from the code tab. You can copy paste those components into your component itself, and later on you can just go ahead and edit them. Or maybe if you don't like the yellow and pink combination here, you can just go ahead with the dark theme just like me. All right, so this being the generative AI part, this being like, now this is not a feature, this is just one of the, what we can say, good to have tools. Yeah. Now, so that's not it. Like Next.js also have a vast of starter templates. For example, if you want something related to your document or just some image gallery, or maybe you want to cover something like an hot AI topic, Next.js have that. You can just have your chatbot started right away. You have the starter code for that. You can have your, what we can say, voice interface starter. You have every sort of what we can say starter template for that. You can pick these templates as your starting code, and later on you can go ahead with as per your client requirements and changes. Yeah, so these being just the starter templates and help you to get started with Next.js. Like you are not obligated to use them in your, what you can say, daily activities. Again, that being dependent on your managers itself and the company you are working with. So yeah. What? All right. So any question here, guys? Come on, there must be some questions specifically from the React community itself.
Somebody who is starting out, like learning the front end and UI, coming from a back-end background, and from where we should start? Like we should go for React or directly for
No, like, yeah, very good question. Like Next.js is built on top of React itself. So it is required for you to have the basic understanding of React. It is just like, now the majority of people over here are from the Ruby itself. So I'm just using the Ruby example. It's like asking like if I can get started with Rails right away, or do I need to learn Ruby first? So it's just answer that your question. Like Next.js is good to have, like you don't need to be stuck in React callback hells. Like I still remember like when I was learning React for the first time, I was just sitting in my room and my mother was yelling downstairs like khana ho gaya aa jao. Not in the Hindi but in the Kannada itself. So yeah. And later on I'm just trying to figure it out like why the hell my component is re-rendering multiple times even if I haven't said so. So it can be intriguing sometimes. React can be really pretty messed up, and the DOM, what we can say, the DOM which was introduced for what we can say efficiency, later on becomes an overhead in your application. So React application tend to be slower in the longer run. Whereas in Next.js, if you use server-side rendering, much of your HTML is generated on the server and streamed right into your application on the client side. So the client only has the, what we can say, responsibility of making it interactive. Much of the stuff is being handled on the server, like your company might buy some very big, what you can say, cloud servers, or you can just stick with your potato PC. It really depends on you, like that. Yeah. Uh,
रिएक्ट में जैसे हुक्स है तो टू मैनेज स्टेट
Yeah.
How Next.js is managing that state of
Okay. Next.js is nothing but just React. What we can say, React ही है, बस चादर ओढ़ के बैठा है, ऐसे कह सकते हो आप. Like state manage के लिए आप use like for managing the states you can use states itself. But when you work when you are naive, you try to work with state.